Good afternoon, welcome to Fishing for Bees. Happy Easter. I'm just going to do hopefully what's a quick video here to go over some of the features of these swarm traps that I run. Obviously this is just what I do, it's just what I prefer. Some of them are less important than others for me, but I do think there's a reason for all of them. So I have my wife here, Elena, she's filming, and Molly to help as well. So here we go. I'm just going to start from the top so I don't lose track. First of all, the hanger. So I don't like this hole too big, that it's too close to the outside edges and can break. These swarm traps get very heavy. Mine are, for instance, this one's OSB board. It already starts out very heavy, but once they're in there, it gets even heavier. So I like a hole big enough that I can get different size spikes through. I've even hung this on a branch that was broken, which was great. This hole is just to hang it, just to start with, and then I ratchet strap it. So because I use these telescoping covers, I have to offset my bracket. I run a ratchet strap through here, and that holds the primary weight. So again, the spike up at the top is just to start with. Then I run the ratchet strap through, and I also level with shims on the back here, which is another reason why I like this big flat surface. You can run shims. Some of the shims are as simple as a twig to then level your trap, because I also run starter strips on the inside, so it's very important that my traps are level. So this is just to start with. This is where I hang the ratchet strap, or put the ratchet strap through to hold the primary of the weight, but these have to be offset, again, because of this telescoping lid. I prefer a telescoping lid. A migratory cover that just has the ends, for me, always tends to bow and always leaves some type of a seam. Even a small seam with heavy rain and weather will get wet on the inside. If this is wet on the inside when they inspect it, they're not going to like it. I prefer a telescoping cover that covers all the way around, which keeps wind and rain out. It has, and for ease of use, it's slightly oversized so that when there's bees in here, you're not trying to get it straight on, it just drops on. These, I need to come up with a better system. This is just what I started with, these eye hooks. So wind, right? You never know, it could be in an open field, or it could be on a tree line where there's less wind. This just simply helps keep the lid on. Obviously, there's a lot of other ways to do that, and probably better ways. I put a hole in the top for feeding. I've caught virgin queens. I've had reasons to feed at the catch site. I've had to drill these in my traps while there was bees inside of here, so I had to take the lid off, drill it, and then put it back on to feed it. So now all of them have a hole in the top for a feed port. Another thing that's nice about these is a lot of times you're trying to determine, is there still scouts or have they already moved in? I can pop this. If they are on my center frames and I'm looking at a bunch of bee eyeballs when I stare through here, I still want to check, but that gives me a good indication that the bees are actually in here and they're living inside here. They're not just scouting anymore. So dual purpose on that. Vents. A lot of discussion of whether you need vents or not. I prefer them. Some people don't. These are vents that I modified. They were simply a plastic vent, but they start to deform the vents as you put them in there, and then they get old over time and they can crack and break. The last thing you want when you're transporting bees is for bees to be coming out. So I just cut some screen, put it in there, and glued it in. It was kind of a pain. You can buy vents that already have the screen in there. I haven't used them, but people have said they work really well. So vents are important, because here's the problem with these traps, and disregard this, this was an addition. In the beginning, if I caught them, I would close this to transport them. Migratory lid, not very good ventilation. They're not getting any air, and you will choke out your bees. Even here in Michigan, I've moved them on 90-degree nights, super humid, very hot, and I move them over 20 miles So by the time I get it all set up at the yard and ready to open the door to orient them to the new yard, it can be over an hour, hour and a half. That's a long time with no ventilation. So again, that's another reason why I run the vents. I also run the vents at the catch sites because in the past, on my darker traps, I have dark green ones. These have gotten very hot on the inside, and I didn't tack in my starter strips. And it actually got so hot on the inside in sun that started melting the wax. That's not what you want. You know, you want the wax to stay where you put it if you're doing strips. But it got so hot in there that a starter strip actually fell out, one that I forgot to tack down. And then by the time I got there, the wax was solid again, but I realized at one point during the day, these traps were getting really, really hot, especially the dark green ones. So I like the vents. Probably a little overkill, having now 4 of them, potentially 4 of them, 3 of them that I run. This one is normally closed. We'll get to that in a minute. So normally I have 3 of them. If there's something that you don't like about them, painter's tape. You can just put painter's tape right over them. Another thing that's nice about the vents, same thing as the feed port in the top. Shine a flashlight in there, and if there's bees all the way over here, you know you got a good sized swarm. So the vents, I feel, are important. Some people say they're not. I couldn't imagine how you could be in Louisiana or Florida or Texas and not run vents moving bees. So, but if you're using a migratory cover, I guess the good thing is you already got a vent up here because they don't fit well, or tend to not fit well. So on the inside, I do melt wax and spread it around. You can see right in here. You can see right in here, there's some old wax. So that just helps for scenting. This trap is caught multiple times, so they've also scented it. On the inside, I might as well do it since I'm here. In the back would be my bait comb. My dry bait comb. No resources, no honey, no anything. If you have to rob it off somewhere else in your bee yard just to get it dry and pristine to put in here, you're better off, because if it's got any resources in it, the first bees that are visiting are not going to be scouts. They're going to be opportunistic foragers robbing your comb. You're going to be excited, and they're not scouts. So I don't like that type of activity. Is it the worst thing in the world? No, because they'll rob it out and eventually they'll leave and not come back and visit because they know that there's nothing of value in there. But that takes time. It could miss a swarm. Plus there's all kinds of bits and debris in the bottom. So I like to run dry bait comb. And then 4 starter strips. I have videos on the starter strips. I have videos in more detail of why I prefer the starter strips. But basically, if this had a bait comb and 4 plastic foundations, especially if I was running a shorter trap, you're eliminating one of the big things that I believe swarms are looking for. When they enter here, they're flapping their wings and they're buzzing, and they are determining the inside cavity space. Sorry about that, Amazon showed up. They're determining the inside cavity space by vibration and echo. So they're inside here flapping their wings and buzzing, and that is bouncing around the inside, and they're getting vibration and echo to determine this inside cavity. So if it's packed full of plastic or packed full of even drawn comb, you're dampening that. You're not getting a good positive feeling about the inside cavity space for them to grow. So I believe that that's very, very important, and one of the reasons why I prefer starter strips. I prefer starter strips in my colonies anyways, and I use this opportunity with the swarms to get them drawn fast. Swarms draw fast, so if I got a bait comb here and 4 starter strips, they can almost fill out. A lot of times they fill out 2 to 3 starter strips before I even pull it out of here in a matter of just days. That's why these need to be level in the tree, right? If you're not level in the tree, and this is your comb or your frames, you're gonna miss it. They draw based on gravity. They don't draw based on even a plastic foundation. So you can even get wonky plastic foundation that one side starts to taper out, and becomes thicker than the other side because they are drawing based on gravity. They're not drawing based on what you're providing as far as plastic. If it's all wonky, it's going to come out wonky. So I always put a level on it. I find it very annoying and sometimes a little bit difficult. But once it's set, ratchet strap here, and it's not going anywhere, and you'll be very, very happy with the comb that you get. One of the other things, so when I go to my yard and I'm installing these, and I have the hive body that they are going to go into already sitting there empty, ready to go. When I take it to the yard, as long as it's over 2 miles, I put it down, I open the door, and I let them orientate in the morning. I do this all at night. So the door is opened at night. I don't lock them in there. I see people asking that question. How long do you lock them in? How many days do I lock them in after I bring them to my yard? None. If it's nighttime, they're gonna come out and take a peek because they're gonna be upset because you drove them around and rattled them and shook them and moved them. They're not gonna fly. If they fly, they're gonna come right back. They're not gonna do distance in the dark. They don't like to fly in the dark. Come morning, this is already open. You don't have to set an alarm. You don't have to go to your bee yard. They're gonna automatically start orienting to this new location. This would be under here would be the entrance of the new colony that they're going into. So they're orienting, and I do it just for the morning. I go late afternoon. Sometimes I wait a day. When I go there and show in to install them, this entrance being close to the entrance of the colony you're putting them at is important. Can it be a small entrance over here? Sure, it's all in the same general area. They'll figure it out. But make sure you're also doing these installs on good days. Don't go there and install it and have rain in an hour. It's going to take them time to find that new entrance because you're going to take this whole trap away. Don't let them get pelted with rain. Don't let them get cold. Don't do this close to the evening. Do it like you would do it in an inspection, you know, a nice day. So they're oriented to this trap. I then install them in their new home, remove the trap, and they're oriented to this location because of this box sitting there for a day or two. A problem that I ran into, I guess it's a blessing, is you'll see in some of my videos, too much equipment on all the hive stands. I got so many deeps, so many nukes, and everything like that. So one of the things I ran into was I would be installing this on a nuke, right? Say this is the lid of the nuke that I'm gonna install it on. Same procedure, the nuke is already there. Gonna orient them to this spot with the trap. But I had deeps and honey production on each side of it, and I only had one entrance. So it got to be a little bit tricky. One of the reasons why I put on the side entrance. So I'll catch them through the front door, and then when I bring them to the yard and I'm installing them on a nuke, I'll open the side door. One of the other things that I think is a benefit of this, especially with short distance moves, so think of them living inside of the trap, right? Same thing, their orientation, they know where the front door is. You close the front door, you give them a second door. The reason why, what triggers orientation flights is something's changed. When they fly out, they see different landscape, or they see different trees, or they realize they're facing a different direction. That'll all trigger orientation flights. I believe that if you give them a different door and they're like, holy cow, things have changed, that's gonna trigger them to do orientation flights. I'm curious if I can just catch them in the front door, because I do some short distance moves. Anything over 2 miles, you don't have to do any forced orientation flights. Anything under 2 miles, you should force orientation flights. My thought is that just by changing their door under 2 miles, that's going to force orientation flights. So I'm really curious about that. That's something new that I put on last year. And then the most recent is a plug in the bottom. So this came up in the Facebook group, Honeybee Swarm Catching, all one word, Honeybee Swarm Catching, 30,000 members. There's a couple groups with close names. So Honeybee, all one word. This came up several times. DW, one of the moderators in the group, always says when people have a refusal to move in or some type of a situation where the bees didn't go in the front door, they're bivouacked on the bottom, they're bivouacked on the side. Well, side, this isn't going to help too much. Bivouacked on the bottom is a common thing that happens. So you have a big ball of bees here, or maybe even they're covering this. What I'm going to be trying it this year. Again, it's new to me, but I added it because of suggestions of other people in the group, especially DW. So they're all balled on the bottom of here. What they're telling me is that if I have a hole in the bottom, so I can just remove this cup, changing the entrance, because I may have over scented here. Again, if you over scent, I believe that's one of the biggest reasons why you get refusals to move in. Queen shows up. The scouts have scouted this whole thing. They said this is where we're moving. The queen shows up, and this has too much scent. The entrance has too much scent. She's not going to march through here. In her mind, marching through here means marching to a battle to the death, because this is already occupied by a queen. That's what the scent is for. So be careful with your scenting. For if the queen decides not to move in, what I'm told, because I'm not going to be scenting here, obviously, I pop this and you can get them to start to march in. So if we end up with a refusal to move in, obviously I'm not shooting for a refusal to move in. If we end up with a refusal to move in, I'm going to give that a try this year. So again, just to go back on the scenting, your scent is to just inform one scout bee that there's a potential home available. You're not informing every scout bee that there's a home available. It takes one. If that bee survives on its flight back to the bivouac in the tree, it will do its waggle dance. It will notify all the scouts. Everything will work the way it's supposed to work, the way bees intend for it to work, without scent. She'll tell them where this is, and then they will find it. If this was not scented, they would find it. They find fields, they find everything that the waggle dance is telling them for, and all the things that it's used for. So light scent, you're just trying to tell the first scout, that one scout will do all the work for you. Over scenting is problematic. Also, over scenting will deter that first scout. So if this thing is too stinky with lemongrass or Swarmcommander, I prefer Swarmcommander, you're going to turn off the first scout. They're not even going to come. So just be careful with your scenting. You can do make a lot of problems for yourself with too much scent. So I guess I will go over the scenting on initial setting of the trap. Bait comb, 4 starter strips, 2 sprays at the top. I put the lid on, and then 2 sprays at the entrance. That's when I'm setting them, because I'm usually setting them in advance of swarm season, right? So I'm 2 weeks ahead of swarm season. 2 sprays here, 2 sprays there is probably over scenting. But I'm not expecting swarms at that time, and they're going to be up, and you're going to get foragers that learn where they're at, and the over scenting isn't an issue. But by the time the swarm season starts, this will have dissipated. It'll be much less. After swarm season is started and I haven't caught, I will come back, and most of the time it's just 1 light spray at the entrance, and then like every other visit I'll give it a light spray at the top. But usually these are in a tree, and it's hard for me to access this lid. Even though the entrance is about eye level or a foot over eye level, I can still reach it and spray it from the ground. I can't rescent the inside without getting out a step stool or a ladder stroke. And I don't believe you even need to rescent the inside. So a lot of times I'll do that every other visit. In addition to scenting, I talked about the wax propolis. So I've taken propolis that I've gotten, apparently they didn't like this entrance, which reminds me, but you can see they started closing it off. That's propolis. I could pluck that off and do it for what I was talking about. So nails, birds, mice. A mouse could still get through here, but this isn't, when swarm season is not a season that a mouse is looking for a home. Birds are looking for homes. So birds are your biggest problem. So some type of intersection of your entrance is really, really important, because those birds will move in there in 1 day's time. These nails have deterred squirrels and rodents like that from gnawing out these holes and making them big enough for their bodies to get through. So the nails are really important. And then back to the propolis. So you can just bust it off. I just put it in here, and then I melt it with a torch, and adds scent and everything else. So I think that's about it. If there's anything else, I'll add it later. But that's how I run my traps. I run 6 of them, and I do not hang them high in the tree anymore. Other than the spike having to be driven in from a ladder, everything else can be handled from the ground. I can walk up to them, and a lot of times even get the ratchet strap off and remove them without having to be on a ladder for transportation. So these are my swarm traps. This one actually is Molly's. This one goes in the city, and we've caught some very big swarms in the city. So please like and subscribe if you made it this long, and thanks for watching. I hope your bees are well.